Hey guys, welcome back to The Binger. The last season of Game of Thrones is in full swing. It's both incredible and bittersweet, as these 6 episodes mark the end of one of the greatest TV shows ever known. Let's look back at some of the best moments in the history of the series. Draw your swords and prepare to stand as we revisit some of the most epic battle scenes ranked. As far as characters go, Ramsay Bolton was the absolute worst. He was probably the 3rd most hated person in Westeros, falling in just behind Joffrey and Cersei. Even before he made Sansa his bride, he was an evil, despicable human being. When Yara Greyjoy turned up with her soldiers to try and get Theon back from Ramsay's clutches, it should have been a battle of epic proportions. Unfortunately, it fell a little short of the bar, although it's still noteworthy. Despite Yara's best efforts, Theon decides to stay with Ramsay as he's basically too broken to do anything else. That marks a pivotal plot point in Theon's story, especially when it comes to his relationship with Sansa. Ramsay did prove how daring he was though, especially as he started the fight by sending Theon's sister her brother's private parts in a jar. Some people send a welcome basket or a sympathy card, but not Ramsay Bolton. He sends junk mail. See what I did there? The fight concluded when Ramsay's terrifying hounds sent the Ironborn running for the hills. Can't say I blame them really, they weren't exactly the petting kind. Ramsay later found that out for himself when Sansa got the ultimate revenge by feeding him to them. More on that later. By season 3 of the show, it was already clear that Dany was miles away from the meek and mild little thing she was at the start. No longer interested in bowing down to any man that would dominate her, she was on her way to claim her throne. She needed a bigger army to do that though, so decided to trade with KRAZNYS, a ruling member of the city of Astapor. KRAZNYS, like many men Dany has met along the way, made the mistake of severely underestimating her. As he spoke only Valyrian, he employed the help of Missandei to translate for him. However, he was insulting the Mother of Dragons the entire way, not realizing that she could secretly speak the language. The leader of the slave nation thought he was going to get a dragon in return for the Unsullied, but how wrong he was. When Dany arrived to make the swap, she revealed that the deal was off and she was going to free all the people. The best part? Drogon burned KRAZNYS to cinders. The Unsullied were delighted to be free and were more than happy to serve their new queen by choice. Well, I can only assume that they were delighted because these are a bunch of trained assassins. They don't tend to smile much. When Dany abolished slavery in Meereen, the Sons of the Harpy weren't the least bit amused. Although they feigned allegiance for a while, they decided to strike and throw the Breaker of Chains out for good, reclaiming Meereen. This battle is one of the few times that it looked like Dany was in real trouble. The Sons stage attacks across the city, firstly by slaying an Unsullied soldier called White Rat. It's not long before the Unsullied retaliate, but they become trapped in a passageway. Dany's loyal servant and trusted friend Barristan Selmy rushes to the aid of the soldiers and puts up a brave fight, but he never makes it out. The show likes to break our hearts, and this was a doozy. This is all before the actual battle happens, but it's good to get a little backstory. With the tension mounting, Dany is persuaded to open up the fighting pits. While attending the showdown, the queen is set upon by a Son of the Harpy assassin. Luckily, Jorah Mormont manages to win back her trust by putting a spear right through the guy's head before he's able to get close. All the Sons reveal themselves and things looked grim for Dany and her gang until Drogon showed up to save the day. This episode also marked the first time that the queen rode one of her dragons too, so that was a huge highlight. Families are so complicated in Game of Thrones that it's difficult to keep track. The Lannisters are more tangled than last year's Christmas lights, and the Targaryens, well, ask Daenerys and Jon about that one. The Greyjoys are no different. When Theon's elusive family were finally introduced into the show, he didn't even know Yara was his sister. The situation led to a very awkward moment on horseback. When they got to know each other again, things were tense at first until Theon proved he could be trusted. After their uncle Euron reappeared and did away with their dad, he claimed the Salt Throne for himself. The insane pirate had big plans for the Iron Islands. Largely, they involved marrying Daenerys and building an army so huge that Westeros would bend the knee. However, Yara and Theon managed to evade his capture and got to Dany first, warning her not to trust their snake of an uncle. As they were sailing back from Dragonstone to Dorne, Euron intercepted them and brought the pain in a big way. There's something really eerie about watching scenes like this unfurl at night, with the flames bouncing off the water. It makes for spectacular viewing, so thumbs up to the writers for this one. And it was worth every penny. Yora's fleet stood no chance when Euron set his sights on them. Viewers were desperate for Yara and Theon to come out on top, but it wasn't to be. Yara was captured by her deranged uncle, who dangled her in front of Theon like a carrot, daring him to rescue her. Instead, he dived into the ocean and made his escape, while the rest of Yara's fleet sank to the ocean, never to be seen again. Okay, I'll be honest with you guys, because I feel like we've got to know each other pretty well. This one physically pains me to talk about, so if I start weeping, then don't judge me, okay? You'll probably be digging out a Kleenex by the end of it too, unless you're totally heartless. If that is the case, then you're clearly descendant from Cersei. Hodor was one of the sweetest staples of the show. Ever since Bran lost his ability to walk back in Season 1, Hodor protected him and made sure he got from A to B. He was a gentle giant that deserved so much more. When Bran and his buddies are trying to escape the Whites, Bran invaded Hodor's brain. The Whites were closing in, so Hodor put his weight against the door. Two devastating things were made clear in this scene. Firstly, Hodor wasn't always this way. It was Bran's invasion of his mind in the past that made him the way he is in the present. The young Hodor yelled out, "Hold the door," as his present self pushed against it with all his might. Secondly, Hodor sacrificed himself to save the young lord and succumb to the will of the White Walkers. The scene broke the hearts of fans worldwide, providing a twist that no one saw coming. It was the battle that had a build-up bigger than an opening act at a Beyoncé concert. Fans had been waiting for eons for the big showdown between Jon, Dany and the Whites, and it didn't disappoint. Both Queen Daenerys and Queen Cersei were reluctant to believe that Whites existed at all at this point. They're both so hell-bent on sitting on the Iron Throne that they can't see the giant scary end of the world that's hurtling toward them. After some discussion, Jon was sent into the Great White Abyss to capture one of the zombie-like creatures as proof. Easy as pie. What kind of king hasn't snared a white or three in their time, right? It was doomed from the start really, but Jon Snow entered into the fray with Tormund, Gendry, Ser Jorah Mormont and a bunch of other crazy people. It doesn't take long for them to find more than they bargained for. After capturing a white, the screams alerted the enemies, who fought back with every ounce of their otherworldly power. Jon Snow and his pals managed to make it to the centre of an island in the middle of a frozen lake, but they're surrounded by whites with nowhere to go. Suddenly, Dany showed up with her dragons to rescue the king in the north. Sadly, Viserion gets speared by the Night King and falls into an icy grave below the frozen lake, much to the dismay of Dany. The dragon will later play an important part as the Night King resurrects him and claims him for his own. Eventually, he used the dragon's icy flames to tear down the wall and break through to the Seven Kingdoms. You might be a little surprised at the position that this particular battle gets, but there's a good reason for it. I've not lost my marbles just yet, I promise. If anything was going to tip me over the edge, it would have been Avengers Endgame. But I'm still standing. This Season 2 episode was a turning point for Game of Thrones. It was already hailed as the next best thing, but the Battle of the Blackwater made it the creme de la creme. This episode should sit on the Iron Throne, never mind the rest of them. The boy King Joffrey was still in his prime when his opposing counterpart Stannis Baratheon decided to give him a run for his money. Rightly believing that he had more claim to the throne than Joffrey did, Stannis made his way to King's Landing with his troops. The Baratheon fleet far outweighed that of Joffrey's, so it was up to Tyrion to figure out how to beat them. Joffrey had no idea what was going on and couldn't understand why his fleet wasn't sailing out to try and defend King's Landing. Tyrion had it all under control. He sent out a singular boat to meet Stannis, filled with wildfire. As it sailed across the port, it leaked a flammable substance everywhere, without Stannis realizing. Bronn fired a flaming arrow into the water at Tyrion's signal, and most of the Baratheon fleet went up in a puff of smoke. Stannis' remaining men attacked the city on foot, but after a valiant effort, they were defeated. It's a head-to-head of monumental proportions that set the tone for the remainder of the series. When Ramsay Bolton took Winterfell, it seemed like all hope was lost. Sansa was subjected to terrible treatment at the hands of her new husband, and she wasn't Ramsay's only victim. During another battle, Sansa was able to escape her captor and reunite with Jon at Castle Black. Ramsay goaded Jon into battle by sending him a letter that threatened Sansa and Rickon, who remained hostage at Winterfell. Angered, Jon gathered up the forces, recruiting houses around the north that were still loyal to the Stark name. Without her brother's consent, Sansa sent a raven to Littlefinger asking for help. After a tense meeting, Ramsay rejected Jon's solution of one-on-one combat. It's clear that this was only going to be settled in one way. Cue lots of swords, nameless men, and a few ill-fated horses thrown into boot. When the battle took place, Ramsay delivered one final blow to the Stark house by bringing out Rickon. It looked like he was going to allow him to live, as he cut his bonds and told him to run to his brother. Just as Rickon was about to reach Jon, Ramsay slayed him with an arrow to the heart. It's enough to make grown men cry, I tell you. The Starks were falling down like rocks, and it looked like the end was near, but Littlefinger turned up at the last second and saved the day. This battle is high on our list for numerous reasons, from the emotional ups and downs to what happened as a result of the win. Jon confronted Ramsay on the battlefield, charging at him unarmed. He pounded the devious lord to a pulp before locking him away as a prisoner. Ramsay Bolton gets eaten alive by his own hounds after Sansa tells him that everything about his house will be forgotten. Revenge is so sweet. This one makes the previous battle at Winterfell look like a day at the park. In quite possibly the most impressive episode of any television programme ever aired, the Battle of Winterfell saw years of build-up come to a head as the living faced off against the dead. Never before had this many moving parts played into such an awesome event. The battle, which lasted the entire third episode of the show's 8th season, was nothing short of jaw-dropping. Not only did it last the whole show, but the episode ran several minutes longer than usual, which only added to the already astronomical levels of stress and tension. Faced with seemingly insurmountable odds and an infinite amount of nightmare-inducing opponents, the living managed to come out victorious. How did they accomplish such an impossible feat? It was all Arya Stark, who said "not today" to the god of death. After what felt like an eternity of battlefield mayhem, it was a simple one-on-one that could conclude the entire battle. Right as the Night King was reaching for his sword to execute Bran, Arya popped out of nowhere on the attack. The ever-aware Night King, who is a pro at never getting caught off guard, caught Arya by the throat mid-lunge. She dropped her Valyrian blade into her other hand and proceeded to stab the White Walker in the abdomen. He then explodes, as does the other White Walkers. All the walking bodies go back to being just bodies, and the world is safe once again. To think, all those warriors and all those weapons out there on the battlefield, all to be halted by an ambitious young girl with a blade. That will undoubtedly go down as the most epic battle in Game of Thrones, and potentially television history. So there you have it. Did I cover a lot of destroyed ground or what? Let me know in the comments if I've missed out one of your favourite battles. There are so many to choose from. Before you go, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.